What's up everybody, Fritz here. In today's video we're going to be getting rid of these BMW plastic rear sway bar end links for the SPL rear sway bar end links. Now if you saw our previous video in which we installed the front end links, you'll probably realize that we're in the progress of upgrading the front and rear sway bars. But although that usually people do this as an entire set, I like to do the modifications one at a time. That way if any adjustments need to be done, we can make those proper adjustments because we know which parts do what at that point. And if you saw that video, you probably heard me say the analogy of the front sway bar end links acting as the elbow joint. But if we look at the front and rear suspension working together, it's more like the leg, where the front sway bar is like the big muscles in your leg, and the front end links are like your knee as well as your hip muscle. And then the rear suspension is more like your ankle, where it doesn't generate the most power, but in the end, it really dictates where your end position is when you're going in and out of a turn. So that's exactly why we're gonna be upgrading the rear end link before we put in any of the sway bars. And the main benefits of installing the rear sway bar end link is that it is made out of 100% metal, it has a thicker diameter, and it has a stiffer ball joint than the OEM end link. And some of the things that you want to have ready before you start this installation is you want to have your jack and jack stands ready, because you don't want to tilt the car to one side or the other and then lift it up at its center jack point to make sure everything fits in the end, as you might have done with the front end links. Here we don't have as much working clearance in order to get access to all of the bolts as well as the holding nuts that are going to hold in the ball joints. So just make sure that the rear is completely lifted, and if you don't know where the center jack points for that, I'm going to leave the video link for you guys right over here. But with that and one other minor inconvenience, I think that this is a whole lot easier than working on the fronts. Because it is a smaller end link compared to the front, you're able to get access to the top and bottom bolt from one position. So you don't necessarily have to go from the wheel well to underneath the car and back and forth. So with that said, let's jump right into it. First, you're gonna need to loosen up the bolts on the wheel. As soon as you've done that, go ahead and lift up the car by its rear center jack point, place in your jack stands, and lower down the car. Now go ahead and remove both wheels here. For the sake of the video, we're only going to show one side, but make sure that you're doing each step on both sides when you're doing this installation and not doing everything on one side and then finishing it up on the other. In order to get access to the bottom bolt of the end link, you're going to actually lift up the rear axle in order to gain access to that T27 counter hold, and using a 16mm wrench, go ahead and break that nut loose, and then you can use the ratcheting side to pull it out the rest of the way. But don't remove it yet, because it's gonna make it easier to remove the top portion with it still in place. For this, you're gonna use a 16mm wrench and a T30 counter hold. As soon as you've done this on both sides, you can remove both end links and orientate your SPL parts to the proper length and orientation of the side that it's going to go on. Here you want to make sure that both ends of the SPL end link have come out about evenly here, and one side isn't completely out and the other one hasn't come out at all. But don't tighten anything down here, because you're still going to make the final adjustments when you put it on the car. The way that you're going to do this is putting on both end links on the car with the nuts on but loose, and then make sure that they fit loosely into their respective positions like this. As soon as you've done that, you're going to tighten down that 15mm bolt and hold those end links in place as you tighten up the jam nuts on both sides to 30 foot-pounds. And for this, you're going to use two 19mm wrenches. As soon as the length has been fixed into place, go ahead and tighten up those ball joint nuts to 30 foot-pounds as well. As soon as you've done this, make sure that all four ball joints are as perpendicular to the ground as possible and closest to their center point in their respective ball joints. If your ball joints don't look something similar to this, you might want to loosen things back up and readjust the length. But if it does look something like this, go ahead and throw the wheels back on and lower down the car. And just like that, you're all done installing the rear sway bar end links on your BMW. This should take about the same amount of time that it did for the front, because although you don't have to get out from underneath the car and back and forth, you do have to lift up the rear axle in order to get access to that bottom bolt just when you're doing the removal process. Now in the 2 Series, you might notice a slight difference in handling, but on the 3 and 4 Series, because of the longer wheelbase, it should be more noticeable. But we're gonna save that video for the review of the end links. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on that video. But if you need the end links or any of the tools that we use in this video, that's gonna be down in the description. If you have any questions for me, please leave it down in the comment section below, and I'll see all of you in the next one.